I wanted you to see this rocky topography here. So just in no time, we've gone from sand, and I guess you see the sand that's in the tracks here, but you know, now there's all these rocks out here. It's just very interesting, and obviously the mountain range in the distance is awesome. So that is actually salt that came in from the ocean, and it went on for a long time, and it just now ended. But I thought it was actually a mirage, but it's actually, and you can see a little bit of it, not quite as dark over there, of the salt. So, but the ocean actually comes in this far sometimes. Another interesting change in the topography. I mean, we're obviously still on sand, but all of a sudden we've got this kind of black rock that is sticking up everywhere. Again, there's, hopefully you can see, there's the ocean there, but just totally different topography. Okay, so this is interesting. The guy just suggested that we take our hand off the steering wheel and just let the car drive in the tracks. It just now got out, but I did it for probably a minute, and it stayed in the tracks. The tracks were a little bit deeper back there. Okay, here we go again. So, oh, nope, got out. Well, it did it correct, quote unquote, correctly. Several turns in a row. We'll give it one more shot. If you can see, I don't have my hands on the wheel. Oh, it didn't stay. All right, well, this was a failed clip. So this is just a few hundred yards down the beach. Again, the ocean is right back there if you can see it. And you got a little rocky here that we're going to drive down, so give you a little bit of rock and a little bit of bouncing around and a little bit of whatever. It doesn't look like this is going to last very long, but just for grins and because it's a different topography, I thought I'd give you a little look at it. We are getting beat around just a little bit. Ooh, woo! The old side steps took a little rock impact, but that's okay. Yeah, so this is fun. This is I hate to say totally different, but a little bit of a different look to it. I keep getting reminded that raised air intake is on this side of the car and is potentially in way of the camera lens. So anyway, really cool. Okay, we've stopped here along the ocean front again, and so this is really interesting. This piece of wood here and there, if you can see right in front of that light blue Grenadier, there's another piece of wood that's sticking up. You see a couple more there. So along this section, the next roughly 20, 30, 40, 50 miles, there were, from the 1400s till today, over 300 ships that sank along this coast because there's a reef out there. In fact, if you probably can't tell from the video, but you see some waves crashing. You see some white water out away from the shore. And so there's a reef there, and sometimes the winds are blowing, at a very high rate, and the boats will be out there. They won't realize that reef is there, at least back in the 14, 15, 16, 1700s, and get caught on the reef. They get pushed ashore, ocean breaks their ship apart, whatever. But if they get stuck here, I mean, back in the day, it was a death sentence because there's no water. There's no fresh water around here at all. So there's no one that was going to come save them. So if they got stuck here, they basically were gonna die right here on this spot. And we're going to see in a second. There was a ship that called the Dunedin Star that crash landed here in 1942 during World War II. They were running close to the shore to try to avoid German U-boats, I think. Anyway, so we're going to see that in a minute, but interesting place here, and supposedly we're going to see a bunch more of these, here you see a few more planks from ships that crashed. Of course, they're going to be here for forever because it is dry here, and they're just going to be covered in sand. No clue what kind of white birds these are, but we pulled up here and they were flying around, swarming, whatever you call that, hanging out together. And they're really flying really slow. It's kind of interesting. Anyway, pretty. All right, so this is the location of where the Dunedin Star wrecked, and I'm going to read this sign to you if you can't read it. In memory of Matthias Corteseb and Angus McIntyre and all those who risked their lives to rescue us, on behalf of the passengers and crew of the Dunedin Star, Sydney Palmer, who was a 3-year-old passenger. This is in 30th of November 1942, and he came back here in 2017 for the 75th anniversary. So this is the makeshift shelter they built for the people who were on the boat. There were, I think, 35 staff and 21 passengers, and they stayed here. The plane that we saw earlier landed out here to help try to provide them supplies. When they were quote-unquote rescued, they had some supplies dropped to them, and finally a tugboat came up here and picked them up, and then the tugboat ran aground and wrecked, and those two people that were named there, Matthias and the other guy, actually died when the tugboat crashed. Sorry, we're moving along, so that's why I'm getting back in. So they died when the tugboat crashed. And, you know, so that's what the sign there was talking about. So really crazy. Again, this happened in 1942. And, you know, the obvious question is, why didn't they drive up here and get them or whatever? Well, this area was unexplored. And the vehicles didn't have the kind of capability that the vehicles that we have today have. And so, anyway, again, lots of wrecks. You see the boards along here on the ground from various boats, and the Dunedin Star, by the way, there is no example, there are no parts of the boat remaining. It was metal, and they're all rusted up. There was supposedly was a big storm last year that one of our guides said uncovered part of it, but it's covered again by the surf and by, you know, and a lot of it is rusted and is gone. So basically there's no evidence of the Dunedin Star. That was the shelter that they lived in to try to survive. But everybody survived the initial wreck, but those two other fellas that were on the sign passed away when the tugboat later wrecked. So it was a very expensive and very serious and very long saving of those people. So I just want to point out again, all of those, you see that raised area right there, that is part of an old ship. So all of that wood that you see out there is, you can tell that's not driftwood. Those are parts of ships that have wrecked here in the past, and these are the remnants. There's some more of them right there. Pretty, I mean, when they told us that, now that was a tire obviously, but when they told us that, I was kind of thinking, well, not really, but all of that out there, it's very obvious that those are planks from various ships that have wrecked here in the past. Another slight change in the topography of right in the distance there, a few hundred yards away, is the Atlantic Ocean again, but these little plants, whatever this vegetation is obviously collecting sand and turning into sand dunes as we speak. And there's a bunch of them, and there's also this bunch of rocks now, so it's interesting again how the topography changes, and I'll show you off in the distance again. So this is supposed to be the last day along the shore, and again we're going to be duning sometime later today. So if you can see it, it's not that big a deal. I thought a vehicle was coming. That's when we pulled over, but as soon as we pulled over, the rocks sank down and it started looking like this. So basically that's why they require you to stay in the tracks that already exist, because if you just got out there, you would destroy, the natural look of the land immediately. All right, so you see these sticks alongside the road. So the ocean, which is over there is sometimes comes this far in, and they still, like the water may be a foot or two tall, and they still use this road and traverse this area even when the water comes up this far. And so they have defined where the road is using these, in many cases, just driftwood to mark it. And, we've been driving along like this for 5 miles, probably, something like that. And this is the kind of topography we have. Again, the ocean is, we're a couple hundred yards from the ocean right now. And we're going to be doing this. The guy just told us that in an hour and a half, we're going to be at the border of Angola, which is, there's a river that separates Namibia from Angola. So again, you see the sticks that have been, the driftwood that's been put up in case of the water. And you can kind of tell, well, they're right there. I mean, the beach comes all the way up here, and we're in several hundred yards from the ocean. So the ocean really comes inland. Here, I guess it's just a lot flatter. I guess that's what I would say, is that the land is a lot flatter right here. Okay, if you can see over there, the mountain range goes from kind of rocky to, in that middle range there is mixed rock and sand. And then from there on, that is sand dune. And we're going to be driving along this sand dune for 30, 40, 50 miles until we get to Angola. And then we're gonna, I think, drive over the sand dune later today. So that'll be lots of fun. Obviously, you can see what we're doing here. We're going about 30 right now. We've been going between 30 and 40 miles an hour, and you can see the vehicle weaving as I go in and out of the tracks. As the cars go by, the more cars go by, the more, there's a weave in this thing. And so you see it kind of throwing the vehicle back and forth as we stay in the tracks of the cars in front of us. And you kind of just let it happen and ride it as long as you can.